Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. My name is Fred Varco, a member of the Professional Activities Committee. And today we're having a very special event, a live semi-podcast by three of the most famous YouTubers based in Japan. At the end, we have Joey, the anime Bizinger.
Yes.
In the middle, we have Connor.
Hi.
Sea
Dog, I guess.
Sea Dog V.A. Colhoun.
What a horrible name to pronounce so long.
And next to me is Gant.
Yes.
Gant Giguk Manitapo. Manitapo, sorry. And we will be discussing all things YouTube, anime, cosplay, manga, gaming, and not politics. So first of all, if you could introduce yourselves to our audience. And I thought it'd be good. You're all bicultural in a way, and bilingual, I think. Joey is half Japanese, half Australian. Connor is completely Welsh.
Yeah, very Welsh, yeah.
but does speak English.
Yeah.
And Gan is British, but of Thai descent.
Yes.
So I thought it would be good if you could introduce yourselves in two languages.
Oh, okay.
Okay, very good.
Well, hello. My name is Joey Bizinger. I go by the Anime Man on YouTube. で、日本は、今年で5年目ですけど、母親方が日本人なため、人生の半分ぐらいは日本にいるっていう感じです。I've been doing YouTube for the past 8 years now. I started in 2013 while still in university in Australia. で、大学を卒業して日本で、YouTuber として、本業を務めさせてもらいました。あとは声優やモデルや、今は現在この2人とポッドキャストをやっている感じです。
Why was the Japanese so much longer than the English?
I don't know. I just got in the Japanese mode and I was like, I'll just do the rest in Japanese.
You're speaking where you were. Okay. So Connor is a Welshman, but he does speak English, so maybe he could give us a bit of both.
Okay, hi, I'm Connor. I'm from Wales, as you've mentioned. I grew up in Wales and went to university in Wales, but now I live in Japan. I guess I'll introduce myself in Welsh as well. Then you Connor, dwi'n dod o Cymru, dwi'n siarad Cymraeg, a ni'n studio Cymraeg trwy'r ysgol, ond rwan ddim yn siarad lot o Cymraeg, ond dwi'n hoffi o. And yeah, now I live in Japan and I'm a YouTuber, and I've been doing that for the past 5 or 6 years, full time now. So, yeah, very strange to be here. Don't dwi'n hoffi o.
Welcome. And Gant?
Thank you. My name's Gan Manitapo. Chu Gan Kap Nai Pasa Thai. I was born and raised in England, but both my parents are of Thai descent. เป็นมีแม่กับพ่อคนไทยแต่ว่าเกิดที่อังกฤษครับ and yeah, now I basically just live in Japan. I do anime content on YouTube, and that's pretty much it. Been living here for just over a year and a half now.
Okay. A little more background. So you're all anime people. Can I call you that?
That's fair enough, I'd say.
I guess so, yeah.
Fair enough.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about your background in anime, how it came about and why, because I'm not an anime person. I grew up in England too.
Actually, do you want to go first? Or
Sure.
Joey, the anime man, yes.
She's the anime man after all.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess my situation's a little unique, or I guess at least it's different from these two, in the sense that, again, my mom is of Japanese descent. So from a very, very young age, basically from as young as I can remember, I've consumed Japanese media such as anime, manga, Japanese TVs, all that kind of stuff. Pretty much grew up with the same type of anime shows that I think every Japanese kid in the 90s grew up with, things like Doraemon, Chibi Maruko-chan, Ojarumaru, all those kinds of children-oriented anime shows. And then just from there, my love for the language and the culture kind of grew. And then I just decided to kind of explore that medium further until I managed to turn it into a job.
You didn't mention Crayon Shin-chan. That's the one.
Oh, Crayon
anime that I
Shin-chan.
do know.
Well, actually, I wasn't allowed to watch Crayon Shin-chan until a certain age because my mom thought it was too vulgar. Which apparently,
Shin-chan vulgar?
I mean, he's like, I'm not going to say it.
Yeah.
I think some parents find that to be a little bit vulgar, especially for like young kids.
Yeah, I wouldn't let Crayon Shin-chan watch my daughter's anime because that would be too vulgar. Okay, Connor, what about you? How did you get into anime?
I don't know really. I mean, I always watched, like cartoons from a young age, and I always enjoyed Pokemon. And I thought, what's this? I always thought it was an American TV show until I got older. And I always enjoyed Japanese culture without realizing, I think. I enjoyed video games that were exported from Japan, obviously been localized. I think a lot of stuff we get in Europe and we get in America that have been localized at a young age you don't realize has been localized. But it has that Japanese kind of flair to it that I feel like persists through. And I think naturally, when I got to like 14, 15, you're able to start Googling stuff and you want to you find your own entertainment. Anime kind of started popping up, and I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a try. And I just became obsessed with it, and somehow turned it into my job for a while.
Just for a little bit of explanation to an older person
Of course.
who didn't watch any anime.
Oh, true. I forget.
Because all the cartoons I watched when I was young were all American or maybe British. But you were saying that a lot of what you were watching was Japanese.
Yeah, I mean, if you have, you have Cartoon Network in America, which was airing a lot of it, mainly American cartoons, but they also had some anime that they dubbed over, like Pokemon, that I think only started maybe. When did the dubbing start? Maybe like 90s, 2000s, 80s, maybe at earliest?
Late 90s.
Right. It started to become very popular with Pokemon, and then, a lot of the Japanese shows are being exported. And that was when I was growing up. So the anime was almost just dropped in between the scheduling with the American cartoons. And it was never explained that it was anime or it was this foreign concept. It was just, here's this American show, next up is this show. It's just a show. You don't know it's Japanese, but you can tell something's different. You can tell it's very, very different to the other shows that you're watching, but you can't quite figure out why when you're a kid.
Was there, for example, a lot of the scenery, did that have kanji characters and katakana and hiragana?
I think back then they used to remove quite a lot of that. I think, and they would localize it to have English, but there would always be things that just were odd, like they might eat a onigiri, and you'd think, what is that? What's an onigiri? And there's a famous joke amongst anime fans where in Pokemon they were eating an onigiri, and in the American version they referred to it as a jelly donut.
Oh.
Because at the time they didn't think that they would understand what an onigiri is. And to be fair, I probably wouldn't have known what it was unless they just said rice ball. Then I probably would have been like, that's a ball of rice.
So a lot of British and American people are coming to Japan and ordering jelly donuts.
That's the first thing I did when I came here. Took a jelly donut.
Yes, okay. Garn, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I have a very similar background to Connor, I'd say, because I feel like a lot of people my age...
It's pretty common, right?
Yeah, it's pretty common. I first got introduced to anime, I'd say, through Pokemon, because Pokemon was an international sensation. But, back when I was a kid, I didn't recognize that this was anime. It was just a cartoon that was airing on TV. And I couldn't quite figure out why it was different. Maybe it was like the character designs or something else rather with the story or how the story's structured and everything like that. But eventually I grew older, and then there were other anime that aired on TV, which I didn't know were anime, like Digimon, Dragon Ball Z, and I continued to watch these types of shows over other cartoons like, Batman, Ed, Edd and Eddy, or like other kind of American animations that were airing. And I couldn't figure out why I was watching one type rather than another until it hit the internet age, and this anime called Naruto was being talked about. And I recognized it was the same art style as the shows I used to watch as a kid. And so I watched Naruto through the internet, knowing that it came from Japan and realizing that there's this whole new genre from this country that's just specialize in animation. And it was called anime. And that's when I really became an anime fan and started watching anime more frequently.
Yeah, I don't know much about anime, although I've watched several Studio Ghibli movies, and that seems to be slightly different at a different level. Is that right? Yeah,
like to me, Studio Ghibli feels more like I'd say like a Disney movie or a Disney animation, and I feel like that's why it's been more internationally recognized than maybe some more niche anime. And especially I think it's because one of the Studio Ghibli films won an Oscar, and I think after that it got like massive international acclaim. But then it was only Studio Ghibli that was really recognized internationally, as opposed to a lot of other anime as well.
Okay. And relating that to YouTube, Gun, I know you started in 2006, was it?
2007, yes.
2007.
On YouTube.
So can you sort of go through your YouTube journey?
Oh my God. So back in 2007, I was still in high school, or college, as we call it in England, and I was studying for my A-levels. And I had a maths exam the next day, and I was very bored, and I thought, why not try something instead of studying for my exam? And so I ended up scripting, recording, and editing a YouTube video about this anime, and I reviewed it, and I posted it on YouTube. And part of the reason I started doing YouTube more is because back when I was growing up, or back when I was a teenager, I really didn't have any friends who liked anime like I did, so I had no one to talk to anime about. So kind of YouTube was my outlet to talk to faceless people on the internet about my passion. And, eventually I just kept doing that over the years, kept doing that through high school, through university, finished university, got a job, worked in a job for about 3 years and then quit it quit it to do YouTube full time. And that's what I've been doing since then.
You make it sound very easy.
So easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's been
just talking to a microphone.
Yeah, 13, 14 years now. It's been like a big part of my life.
Okay, just quickly, what's the difference between 2007 and 2021 in terms of not what you do, but more the kind of technology and how you do it?
I mean, I'd say right now the barrier for entry for YouTube videos are a lot higher than what it was when I first started doing YouTube. Because back then I recorded with like a $5 microphone, edited with Windows Movie Maker, which was free with every Windows PC at the time. So it was like the bare bones basic kind of YouTube video, and I don't think you can get away with that nowadays because the quality of YouTube videos is so much more higher nowadays. And also I'd say the biggest difference is that you can do this as a job. Like I did it back then because it was just a hobby, and I remember I uploaded my first YouTube video, and a day after it got 5 views, and I was like ecstatic that 5 actual people had watched my video. And just the thought of being able to talk about anime on YouTube and make it a job was kind of unthinkable. It was beyond a dream, because a dream would be something that you could, kind of like reach. But at that time, because there just wasn't a community or wasn't an audience there, that just wasn't even possible back then.
Okay, I'm going to mention something. You did work for the BBC.
Yes, yes.
What did your parents say when you said to them, I'm going to quit the BBC to become an anime YouTuber?
Well, I'd say the first instinct was they very politely tried to talk me out of it.
I don't know if they did that politely.
I mean, to be fair to them, I understand the worries that they had, because we were going through a transition in our lives where my parents are pretty old right now. So as coming from an Asian background, it was expected that I would need to give financial help to my parents, and they were very worried about that as well. And I was also very worried about that as well, because I want my parents to have an easy life. But I knew that they did not understand YouTube, and they didn't understand what kind of job I was getting into. And I had tried my best to explain to them, and I said, look, I know you don't understand what I'm doing, but if you don't trust this YouTube thing, at least trust in me that I know what I'm doing.
Which was harder to trust, the YouTube thing?
Well, that's why I said to my mum, look, I saved up 6 months worth of money to support myself without any income. And I said, look, give me 6 months. And if I'm still not making any money after 6 months, I'll quit YouTube and I'll go back to being an engineer, working for the BBC, whatever. But at least just give me these 6 months to prove that I can do this. And yeah, that's eventually what allowed me to quit my job and go do YouTube.
So after 6 months, you were a millionaire.
After 6 months, I could afford rent again, which was a good start for my parents.
Connor, I think your story is slightly different. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess so. Where would you want me to start on my story? Where?
When you first started doing YouTube.
Oh, okay. So I was studying mechanical engineering in university, and I realized about 1 year into mechanical engineering, I did not enjoy mechanical engineering.
Surprise.
I know, so right? Who'd have thought? But it was a degree that I thought generally was. I mean, it's a good degree to have, and I still carried on with it. But during the first summer break that you get after first year, I thought, okay, well, I really want to do something, and I'd been doing voice acting on my own online for about 2 years at this point, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to make a YouTube channel and just make something because I'm bored and I need something to do. And then for some reason, people were watching right away from the first video. And I thought, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I guess I'll make another one. And then made another one. And then you kind of get addicted to the people coming in. You're like, oh, well, this is so cool. And then you keep making them. And I was doing this all throughout university. And I did start making like a little bit of money, which at the time was crazy because, the thought of being able to make money off something you make is like, it's crazy. I mean, then when you're 20 years old, I think that's such a gratifying. Oh my English is not working right now. Gratifying feeling. And so I just continued doing it. And by the time I'd finished my degree, I thought, oh, okay, I'm just about enough to be able to pay rent. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a go full time. And it was a terrible decision at first because I started doing awfully the month that I decided to go and live off it full time. And I was so worried that I was going to fail. But luckily I managed to turn it around. And somehow I'm here in Japan now.
Were you doing just anime?
For a while I was doing just anime. For about 2 years I was mainly using my previous background in voice acting to impersonate characters and make silly videos, essentially, where I would maybe do prank calls or something or call viewers up as characters. And that was what I was doing for a very long time, but I kind of wanted to branch out a bit, and I thought that I was essentially impersonating these characters, but I was the one who was being doing the entertainment, and I thought, I think I can be entertaining too without needing to be a character. And so I started doing silly stuff with myself, I guess just buying terrible costumes online and trying them on, and for some reason people like watching me be an idiot. So that's my full-time job description now.
Well, if it works.
It does work. Somehow.
And Joey, the anime man, was anime your gateway to YouTube?
It was indeed. How did you know?
I'm a journalist.
So how I started was, it started from this kind of high school web design project that I had to do for school, where each of us had to design and create a website around any topic that we were personally interested in. And as the only Asian kid in my school, and as the only person who liked anime or anything Japanese culture, I figured, well, if I'm going to stand out and make an impression on my teacher, I should probably do it on something unique. So I made a website on anime where I made these horrible anime reviews. I look back on it now and they're barely reviews. Like any journalist would look at that and be like, that is the worst writing imaginable. But I did that, and I enjoyed it so much that I decided, well, I'm probably going to just keep this website running because I personally enjoyed it. So I kept on writing all these reviews on shows that I watched to the point where I started to get somewhat of an audience somehow. And then somebody suggested during the first year of university, hey, you should make YouTube reviews on anime. And I thought, oh, okay, I've never really made a video on YouTube before, but I'll give it a go. Maybe it's like a side thing. So I posted my first YouTube video, and that did really well, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought I'll do another one. And I did it again and got more views, to the point where I was getting more views outside of my website than I was on my website. And then I kind of just slowly transitioned away from my website to making reviews in video format. And and that's how I'm here today.
In terms of time scale, what are we looking at from when you started YouTube to when you started making money and eventually coming to Japan?
So the first So I started my YouTube channel in 2013, which was during my first year of university. I was studying graphic and web design at Sydney University. And I really enjoyed that, but I was doing YouTube as more of a hobby. I was kind of making maybe pocket change on the side, enough to kind of buy clothes and that kind of stuff and afford rent and whatnot. And then by the time I graduated university, I had already pretty much making enough money to make this my full-time job, which I guess inspired me, or I guess convinced me that, oh, maybe I can do this full-time. So I was going to move to Japan anyway after university because, thank you. I was going to move to Japan anyway after university because as someone who can speak both English and Japanese, I just saw more opportunity in jobs being in Japan rather than being in Australia. Because the unfortunate fact of the matter is in Australia, you can't really get that far knowing Japanese all that much. But in Japan, you can get very far if you know English. So it was just a natural decision. But instead of applying for an actual proper job at a Japanese company, I told my mum that I wanted to try this YouTube thing. And she said, okay, I'll let you do it, but if I'll give you 2 years to try and make this your full-time job, and if within those 2 years you get to a point where you can't make enough money anymore, then you have to promise me you'll go get a real job. So I made that promise. Luckily, it just kept rising for me to the point where even my very stern Asian mother was like, okay, I'll admit this might be a legitimate job for you.
Well,
So, yeah.
we see a cultural difference already. Your stern Asian mother gave you 2 years, whereas your stern Asian mother gave you 6 months.
Yeah.
To be fair, I'd already been in the workforce for 3 years, so that's I guess that's why.
Yeah.
Connor, did you have any resistance from family or others?
Well, I think you could probably guess the answer. Like zero. I mean, I don't know. I think my parents knew that I was pretty stubborn with things. I was going to do it regardless of if they wanted me to or not, and I think they knew that. So they were like, all right, well, not much we can do. Go on. So yeah, I guess that's really what I just told my parents what I was doing. They were like, okay, sounds good. Don't fail.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah, luckily it worked out.
And what about the move to Japan? Obviously, Joey, you came first, and it was easier for you because you're half Japanese.
Yeah. So again, I was going to move to Japan anyway because I'd interned at a Japanese tech company the year before I moved. So I was originally planning to eventually get a job there full time, but luckily the whole YouTube thing worked out for me, and that was 5 years ago, so 2016, I think, and I've been here since.
Connor and Gant, did you come as a team or?
We did, yeah. It made it less nerve-wracking when you know your friends going through the exact same process.
Were you in contact in England with each other?
Yeah, we hung out a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, we were already really close friends anyway, and we were close friends with Joey as well, but we couldn't hang out as often because when Joey was in a different country, whereas me and Connor lived like an hour apart because he lived in London, I lived in Brighton, so we were only like an hour apart. And yeah, we basically got sent over as a package deal, I guess, right?
That's very so, yeah.
That's the closest way I can say it. Where
You were brought over by Geeks
Plus,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, Geeks Plus is a offshoot of Bookwalker, who we had worked with before. And our manager now, Mei-Lin Tran, she just came to us one day and was just like, hey, do you guys want to work and live in Japan? And I said, well, I talk about anime, so that just seems like the natural evolution of things, right? And also got friends here as well, so it just seemed like a good opportunity. And I am really enjoying my time here.
And it's been plain sailing ever since.
Well, I've enjoyed my time here. It's it's not always been plain sailing, but it's for the most part, it's been a very positive experience.
Okay, we'll get on to more Japan stuff later. Trash Taste. Now, you all have very popular individual channels.
Right.
But about a year ago, you started doing Trash Taste, the purpose of which was
Just to
Talk, I guess. We just wanted to have a chat, you know.
We normally talk anyway, so we thought, why not put a camera on us and film us?
I suppose
talk
we're-
shit about stuff.
Yeah.
We're YouTubers, so we're like, how do we monetize every aspect of our life? You know? So why not monetize our conversations? You know? So that's how it came around.
Yeah.
But whose idea was that? How did that come about?
I don't know. I think it was just a mutual thing where we all had the idea and we'd all done podcasts before. And I think we were just thought, well, it's the perfect opportunity. I don't think any one of us just think like, boys, let's do a podcast. I think it was just of course we're going to do a podcast.
Yeah. I think if I were to say, like, it might have really kind of come into fruition and we might have really started to actually take it a lot more seriously when Gaunt first came to Japan to hang out with me.
Yeah.
And we had like conversations about this idea of a podcast that we do in person, but we were always like, how do we get each other in person? We all live in different countries. We all have our different, channels to run and different schedules to follow. So I think until the whole idea of them moving to Japan, it was kind of just left in the back burner a little bit of, this might be an idea that hopefully one day we'll be able to fulfill in some aspect. But yeah, I think it really did truly kind of sink in that, we might actually be able to pull this off when Gaunt and Connor got the opportunity to actually come to Japan.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
Because we've been part of podcasts before, but the anime podcast we've been a part of before has just literally been like recorded Skype calls or Discord calls.
It's all been online, essentially.
Yeah, it's all been online, and I think there was like a huge gap in the anime podcast sphere of just like high quality or high production on camera podcasts, and so there was, I think there was just always this natural understanding of if we had the opportunity to have our mates living in close proximity where we could literally talk to each other and be on camera and be in the same room instead of talking via, online Skype calls and everything like that, then we should do it. And the opportunity came about when we moved to Japan, and I think we just took the opportunity.
But was the initial purpose just to do something on anime? And how did the first episode go?
The original idea was, because all three of us have our own channels where predominantly we do talk about anime and kind of Japanese geek culture and stuff like that, that naturally, because our audiences already know us for that of course we want to bring that audience to this new avenue.
Yeah.
So we should probably talk about the things that our audience is already familiar with. But I think that very quickly faded away on the first episode.
I think I remember when we were just talking about, they're like, it's going to be an anime podcast. And I was like, yeah, an anime podcast. All right. Okay. Because I was like, I didn't think there was much to talk about. I passed X amount of episodes.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that we very much pushed it.
I think the original idea was like, we're going to make it an anime podcast. But then over time, as we grow a fan base, maybe we can start branching out to other non-anime things.
Well, I remember there was this, I think there was this important discussion that we had, which seems probably like not even remotely important to anyone outside of making it, where we have two channels, right? So we have the main channel, which is the full 2-hour-long episodes, and we have a secondary channel that has the clips of the episode just cut down for like
It's like a best of type of thing.
So they can just, if they want to find something that we're talking about for 10 minutes, they don't have to go through the whole 2 hours. And there's a discussion where we were like, do we use our real names in the clips or our screen names? So like that time when Connor or that time when Sea-Dog did X and X. And I think that I remember that we were like, I think we should put our real names, because I feel like that really shows what vibe we're trying to go for, that we're trying to build and trying to show people a more personal side and try and show more of that aspect as opposed to the screen name, which is more associated with anime and doing anime things.
I feel that by using our real names, it not only makes us more personable to our audience, but it also, I mean, I wouldn't really say it's kind of branching out from our own brands that we've created, but it kind of is in the same sense, because I have seen that now there are actually a lot of Trash Taste viewers who don't necessarily watch our own individual channels. They just know us as Joey from Trash Taste rather than the Anime Man. So I feel that it kind of served a number of purposes to use our real names, because, at the end of the day, what we want to show on our podcast is just three mates just in front of a camera just talking.
Talking about inappropriate topics that we aren't fully educated on.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. You're doing a good job. And in terms of your individual channels, I mean, I'll go to Connor on this one.
Oh, gosh.
Because he's the anime man, and he's very much an anime man.
Yeah.
Whereas you seem to be branching out a little more into strange bars, like Java and places.
I think it's just my joy comes from just entertainment and just what can I make that's entertaining. And I think I never really, for a while I was doing specifically just anime, and then after a certain while, I just gave up on doing that, and I felt that was so restricting. So now and for the past 2 or 3 years, I've just been doing anything that I think is quite interesting or entertaining. And some of it is very strange, I think, when you see some of it. My parents definitely are concerned sometimes with the stuff that they see, but overall they still think it's pretty funny. So
I would think your therapist would be concerned too.
yeah, I think so.
And what about Joey and Gun? Do you feel now that you want to branch out and do different things? I mean, I know that Trash Taste is doing specials a la Top Gear.
Yeah.
Is that a direction you're heading in?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've worn our influences on our sleeves. That, especially with the Trash Taste specials, we did draw a lot of influence from Top Gear, especially. And I mean, for me, like Trash Taste, at least now, is like, I feel like Trash Taste has a lot of potential to branch out into a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily have to be anime based. I know we had a lot of like our initial audience, we got an influx because we were anime YouTubers, that initially our audience was a lot of anime YouTube. But now I think we've branched out enough where we could do a video on anything interesting and basically be able to market that. For me personally, on my own channel, I am still very much interested in anime. I mean, the reason I got into this job was because anime was my passion, and I don't think that's ever going to disappear. I don't think I'm going to change that main appeal of my channel, but maybe 1 or 2 videos here and there branching out to something different, but I don't think I'll ever change from being an anime channel.
Okay. We sort of take that another step further, and you become a commentator on Japan, if you like, and you're sort of getting into journalist territory, which is obviously my territory. Do you see that as being a problem in a way?
It's strange. I think we inadvertently became that. I think the podcast was just, we would air frustrations or talk about daily life. And obviously living in Japan, it inadvertently came in that, oh wow, we talk a lot about Japan and the frustrations of living in Japan as a foreigner. I don't think it's a problem. I think that it's not what a lot of, it's not to the normal journalistic standards by any means. I mean, it's supposed to be 3 mates just talking nonsense to each other about their daily life. And yeah, I think we like it and we see it as that. So I think when we get compared to journalists, we're like, oh no, God, no. We're more entertainers than journalists in any way.
We're just opinionated entertainers. That's
very
that's
opinionated, very opinionated.
I mean, I feel like it's, we're more talking about our own experiences and what we've experienced. We don't try, like, I think we try not to make a blanket statement about here's what, everyone experiences when they move to Japan.
Try not to, but I think we definitely have sometime. I'm probably very guilty of that myself.
But I mean, we do try to like say, hey, we are not the most informed people in our fields. This is just our opinions based on our experiences. And this, you should not take our word like the Bible or anything like that.
But part of the problem is that as a commentator on Japan, people will take your word probably more seriously than your intention is.
Possibly. Oh, wow, my voice is very high there. Wow. Possibly. But then I believe that someone who would be watching Trash Taste anyway would probably be consuming some other form of Japan journalism in any way, be it other YouTube channels, articles. So, I mean, I'd like to think that it's one side and they can get an opinion from us regarding Japan. And it might not be always, one-for-one comparison.
I mean, I feel a little concerned if someone was gaining all their information about Japan through
I'm sure there is probably
just
somebody.
I mean, if they are, then that's kind of on them and not us, to be honest. But yeah, like, again, like we always try to make sure to stress the point that, this is purely just how we have seen it, and we tell these stories and we give these opinions purely by entertainment purposes.
Yeah,
and
only a sample size of 3, unfortunately,
Yeah,
which isn't a very good one by any metric.
No.
I mean, what I would say is like our experiences and our like advice about Japan life and Japan experiences should be no different than you asking a mate who has lived in Japan
Exactly, yeah.
what their experience of Japan is, and I feel like that's really kind of what we go for.
And Joey, being half Japanese, are you kind of like the culture police for these two?
I wouldn't exactly say I'm the culture police, because I feel I'm in a very unique position in that sense where although culturally speaking, and speaking by heritage, I do have Japanese blood in me, and I kind of did grow up, especially in a Japanese household. I did kind of grow up with Japanese customs and ways of thinking and stuff like that. But I've also been very heavily westernized by living in Australia as well. So I feel like I'm in a weird in-between spot where there are some parts about Japanese culture that I very much sympathize with and understand fully why that is the case, that Westerners might look at and go, oh, that's really strange. And same thing goes for the reverse as well. So there are some times where I'm not afraid to be like, yeah, I get what you're saying about that complaint about Japan, but here's why that is the case. And I'd like to think I use that as a way to kind of make the boys and also the people watching us to kind of see both sides of that argument. But again, I don't claim to be an expert in any way. That's just what I grew up with and what I've experienced personally. So yeah.
Okay. Apart from anime, I've got 4 topics here: anime, cosplay, manga, and gaming.
Right.
Are they kind of related? Are you involved in all of them?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean,
I'd say all the cultures are very intertwined.
Yeah.
I feel if you like one of them, you're bound to like the rest of them.
Yeah,
In some degree, yeah.
I feel like
Explain it to someone who hasn't got a clue.
Well, I mean,
I feel like for cosplay especially, I mean, cosplay is just dressing up in the character. And more likely than not, if you really, really feel strongly about an anime show or a manga or a video game, you're most likely to not have any qualms with cosplay. You just think, oh, it's just dressing up at the bare minimum, and you might think, oh, I want to do this myself. I think a lot of anime fans, manga fans, gaming fans kind of just see cosplaying as a cool thing, even if they don't partake in it themselves. And again, manga, obviously, there's always adaptations of manga and anime, so those go in. There's video game anime. We recently had like Castlevania on Netflix, which is a long-running game series. So I feel that not only is all the work very derivative of each other, they often share ideas and swap ideas. It's all just the culture is very similar as well. Like the way that if you were to interact with someone online who likes manga, you'll probably be able to interact with someone who likes gaming and cosplay. It's all very intertwined.
I mean, I feel the same thing happens in the West as well, because I mean, I find it interesting how cosplay is now kind of been tied to Japanese culture, when cosplay in the West has been around for decades now. You can go to a Star Wars convention and see people dressing up as Star Wars characters. That is technically cosplay. And if you ask a Superman fan who is cosplaying as Superman, what your favorite comic is, they'll talk about Superman comics or the Superman cartoons or all that kind of stuff. So I feel the cosplay, manga, anime, gaming scene is pretty much what they also have in the West, but just obviously Japanese. Yeah.
So in some ways, I guess you're kind of exporting Japanese culture. Is that right?
Some aspects, yeah.
Some aspects, yeah, definitely.
And can you just kind of explain how? I think you said before that originally Japanese anime was kind of small fry in the West, but now it's a big thing, right?
Yeah, I feel like when I was growing up, it was really an underground thing, and I feel like now it's gotten far more popular and far more accepted. I remember when I was young, kids would be bullied for liking anime and even playing video games, right?
Same.
And now it's basically, I've heard of some kids getting bullied for not watching anime, and that's just because it's just been much more ingrained in pop culture now, where before it was really seen as this like really nerdy thing that only nerdy people watch, but now I feel like because nerd culture as a whole has gotten far more mainstream, then it's just become far more accepted and far more popular.
I recently did my mum works in a school for primary school children back in Wales, and she asked me to do a presentation for them, and I thought, okay, great, it'll be easy, just 10-year-old kids, that'll be fine. And one of the questions the kids asked me was like what my favorite anime was. I named an anime called Attack on Titan or Shingeki no Kyojin, which is like super popular here in Japan, very popular in the West. And even though this is a very violent anime, all of these kids were like just like roaring because they were like, "Oh, we love that show!" And I was like, "This is far too gore to be viewed by you kids." But all of the kids knew it, and it was very odd because like when we were in school, that would never happen. Never happen.
I mean, for me, as an anime fan, as a kid, I had to keep my hobby secret. Like
Same.
I had to I had to watch the footy and everything just so I could have something to talk to the kids about.
Pretend to watch the game. Like I'd ask my dad what the score was. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, it was Arsenal played really well." Terry, I really can't believe it.
Yeah.
So, for Gant and Connor, how has your view of Japan changed in the last 2 years since you've been in Japan? What were your expectations, and what expectations were kind of burst?
My expectations was that Japan was very, very optimized. It was because when you come here as a tourist, everything just works.
Everything's flawless.
Everything's flawless. Everything's seamless. Things just seem to work. And then you move here, and it's the quality of living here is absolutely amazing. What's difficult is setting up that quality of living, it's for me the thing that surprised me the most was Japanese bureaucracy, I guess, because there's so much red tape, so much paperwork that you seem to have to go through just to live your life sometimes. And, as a tourist, you don't experience this because you're here, just sightseeing, you're here to enjoy yourself, but here to set up your life, you have to go through a lot of things that I took for granted, I guess, from living in the UK and even living in Thailand. Processes just seem to be smoother in other places that I have lived, whereas in Japan, there seems to be a lot of layers to everything you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, same thing, really. When we were filing for the visa process, obviously you understand that a visa process is a very long and bloated thing that you have to do, and you're like, oh, okay, no big deal. I get it. It's very serious. And then when you move here, you're like, oh, okay, maybe it'll be a little easier. And you start applying for houses, and you're like, oh god, this is not easy at all. This is very difficult. And every single thing that you kind of took for granted in the UK, and I've only lived in the UK, so I can't really comment outside of other countries. But things were just I found that I could get a lot of things done in one day over the phone in the UK. And I feel like I can only get one thing done in person in Japan per day. Just getting something like my bank statement feels like a monumental challenge in Japan. And I took it for granted that I could download the PDFs online in the UK. And so I just prepare now that every bureaucratic experience is going to be extremely slow. But again, like Gant said, at the end of the day, it's a very slow process, but you get a really rewarding quality of life out of it. I think there's a reason why a lot of people are very happy after a while being here. It's just very unhappy during the paperwork.
Have you bought a fax machine yet?
I have not. I refuse to buy a fax machine.
You'll have to at one stage, don't worry.
I hope the fax machine dies before I do, but I don't know. Japan's really trying their hardest to keep it alive.
But Joey, because you're Japanese, you've been here a lot and you've had Japanese culture, but there must have been some surprises for you too when you came here.
Yeah, I mean, I've been coming to Japan my entire life, but kind of, more as a tourist more than anything. I never really lived outside of my parents' place until I moved to Japan. So, I never knew how to file for taxes or pay rent or any of that kind of stuff back in Australia, let alone in Japan. So for me, when I did move to Japan, it was a bigger shock of, adulting is hard versus, Japan is hard, So it was kind of a weird culture shock.
Like a double whammy.
Yeah, I got a double whammy of culture shock. I guess
you went adulting hard mode.
I did go adulting hard
to hold
mode.
your hand.
Yeah. So because yes, I know the language and I know the culture and I know how to talk to people, but I don't know how to pay for my water bills in Japan. Nobody teaches me that kind of stuff. So it was an interesting learning process for me to kind of familiarize myself with something that I guess should be familiar to me, but really wasn't. So yeah, I don't know.
What about Japanese cliches? I mean, which cliches actually were true and which were just myths, for example?
God, that's hard to say.
Gant and Connor, you can chip in too.
Japanese cliches.
Well, what Japanese cliches are there? I
well,
guess.
like the salaryman thing and the crowded trains and stuff
Those
like
trains
that.
are very crowded.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been on the Central Line as well in London,
Yeah.
so it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Central Line at 8 a.m. is kind of the same experience
Yeah.
as well. But I mean, I guess the biggest thing that surprised me, and this wasn't even when I moved to Japan. This was when I was here as a tourist. I would, be out drinking at like 2 a.m. Sometimes 2, 3 a.m. and I'd see salaryman just like running about in the city. I was like, people are still working at this time. And I guess I had heard about some of the work culture here, and I think we've been very lucky that we've, for the most part, we've been able to continue our work life from abroad because, I think Geeks Plus is a very international company. So we haven't had too much first-hand experiences with that. We just know, we've just heard about these experiences from other people that we've talked to and met here.
Okay. What about your viewers for your individual channels and for Trash Taste? Where are your viewers based?
Predominantly in mostly in English-speaking countries, so the US, UK, Europe, Australia, a lot of Southeast Asia as well.
Yeah, a lot of Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I'd say those like pretty much the big three. So the Americas, Europe, and Southeast Asia. Yeah.
And in terms of response, positive and negative, what kind of direct response do you get?
Well, I guess it really depends on what we talk about and what our audiences kind of take away from the episodes. I mean, I like to think that the majority of the response has been quite positive. People understand that it is our opinion at the end of the day. They enjoy what we talk about. They enjoy our chemistry. They just like the very kind of casual, just off the cuff type of nature that the show presents itself as. Of course, that's not to say that we have never had any criticism. Sometimes we do get some criticism from Japanese people sometimes where they say, "Oh, you guys have no idea about Japanese culture and any of that kind of stuff." And it's a very flawed image that you have of Japan. It's not like that. And we understand that those are opinions, and they have every right to complain and be critical about it. I think, but we also don't really claim to be cultural experts either.
I think if we complain, it's only fair people can also complain about us.
Of course, yeah. Exactly.
I think when you do YouTube long enough and you get to a size that's quite substantial, you just kind of get used to having to accept that there are people who might not like what you say, might not agree with your opinions, and that's fine. I don't think we particularly get offended by it.
You could be the greatest Samaritan on the platform, but somebody somewhere will find any reason to dislike you.
Well,
and that's just
that as well. Yeah,
that's just the nature of YouTube, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that what we try to do is we just try to give a very fair, very straight image of our experiences in Japan. And I mean, I think two of us being British as well is just steeped in our culture that we just
very much so.
just complain about the smallest things, and some people might not understand that. But I mean, Japan's not even the place that we complain about the most. I'd say I think we try to be fair in that, we complain
I
about...
complain about everywhere I go, to be fair.
We
I
complain
find
about
something to
everywhere
dislike.
we go. And we complain about England, and we especially complain about America as well. So it's...
Yeah, we do have running jokes that we complain about America too much, or that I particularly do. But I mean, I think as a British person, I reserve the right to complain about everything, including my own life and everything going on.
Okay, that works. What about in terms of delicate subjects? Have you tackled serious subjects?
Have we tackled any serious subjects?
I feel like we've thought about tackling some serious subjects that have happened, maybe some that are very timely, but I think at the end of the day, we try to avoid them as much as possible, especially if we're not very educated on the subject matter. And even if we are educated on the subject matter, we don't usually like to delve in it for too long, because at the end of the day, that's not really what Trash Taste is all about. Trash Taste is all about, having fun, kind of, ending the week off by listening to some boys, talk casually about non-important matters. So, I don't know. Have we talked about...
Well, we talked slightly about, I think, Japan's response to the coronavirus as well, a little bit on the podcast. But we try not to delve on it for too long, because at the end of the day, it's a subject that not everyone wants to hear about, and sometimes it is an entertainment show after all. and sometimes that's not very entertaining to hear about more of the same stuff that's going on in the world.
Right.
As a lot of the time, there's more qualified people who, there's absolutely an endless barrage of online creators and online commentators and journalists talking about what's going on in the world, and we're not really good at that.
So we're not journalists.
We tend to just stick to just what we enjoy, and frankly, I mean, between the three of us, we don't really talk about sensitive subjects too much either.
No, not really.
I think.
I mean, this morning I was watching Joey's, he did 10 minutes, maybe last year, on being a hafu.
Yes,
okay.
I did make a video on that.
So that was a very direct and serious topic.
Yeah, that's kind of like a video I've been wanting to make for quite a while now, where I have, in the past, I have had very much quite serious identity, I guess, issues concerning my race and, heritage and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know. I thought my audience would have hated that video, to be completely honest, because again, it is very different to my usual content. It's very serious. It's not very funny or anything like that. But I thought it was important to share because, it's kind of a part of me that I don't really share because it is quite personal to me. But I think I released that video after Trash Taste had started. And I think especially this year, because of Trash Taste, I've had quite a bit more, I guess, reassurance that people don't just come to my channel for anime content. They actually care about me as a person. And, that really gave me kind of a confidence boost on just me as a person and me as a personality. And I think if I didn't have that, I probably would have never had the courage to release a video like that.
And one more video, which we talked about earlier, the Junko Furuta murder. You did a video about a manga about a murder.
Yes, yeah.
And I haven't seen that one, but that's a very serious topic. It's one of the most brutal crimes in Japan's history.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very infamous crime that, if you do kind of delve into that kind of internet culture, especially around Japan, and especially with the massive boom in popularity of true crime documentaries and stuff like that on YouTube. That's just a story that you just naturally comes into your ear. And when I heard that there was a number of multimedia, concerning and, taking the whole Furuta Junko case, I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And I wasn't planning to make a video on it at first, but then I actually read the 2 manga series that it was based off of. And I thought it was kind of important to, I guess, share and let people know that this kind of stuff does exist out there. But yeah, I don't know. I with that kind of stuff, I've always been more so about talking about kind of the hidden stuff behind anime and manga culture and stuff like that, just because there is so much out there that is just untapped and undiscovered and not talked about by the wider audience. So I find that personally more interesting than talking about, the biggest show that everyone is talking about right now.
Yeah. And on a similar level, Connor, pole dancing and young boys kissing in a bar, you've broadened your horizons quite a bit, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, anything that sounds remotely entertaining, I'm down to go and see and film it, because I think, why not? If I don't do it, someone else will.
I don't think so.
And so I try to get there first. Pole dancing be it. Well, yeah, I have a friend who helps me make videos, and sometimes they pitch ideas to me that I would never ever want to do willingly, but they're like, I think it'd be a good idea, and I trust their opinion, so I go and do it.
Could that sort of thing happen in Wales or England?
Oh no! I think actually it stems from just a majority of a cultural difference. I think we're very outspoken in England and Wales, and we're very also kind of unfortunately judgmental of what we enjoy. What your friend enjoys. If your friend doesn't enjoy football, it's like, oh, what do you enjoy? Oh, okay, you like anime, all right. Bit of a weird one, but. In Japan, I feel like people don't really talk as much to each other, and almost sometimes in a kind of sad way, where I feel that people often don't get everything that they want in their life. And so I find that entertainment things have popped up to kind of satisfy those needs. Like, for example, there's a cafe where you can go and watch people pretending to be anime characters and kissing. And that's something that there's an audience for, and something like that would never work in the UK. And I think that this does come back to almost how I think Japan sometimes is quite a lonely place and quite a sad place. And I feel it's really interesting covering these really bizarre services And recently, just today, I released I released a video renting a boyfriend in Japan, which is a service that I couldn't imagine ever existing in the UK, just because the sheer amount of judgment one would receive from renting a boyfriend would be monumental.
I did a video about a year ago where I rented a mum.
Right.
As well.
And on the surface level, it's so funny and so interesting covering these things, and it is very lighthearted, and the videos I make are very lighthearted. But when you really think about it and why these services exist, it is quite sad. And I think that is an aspect of Japanese culture where people aren't very social with each other, I think. But again, that's my personal opinion.
And the reason you can do that, of course, is you can play the gaijin card.
Yeah, most of the time you can get away with that. But I think it wouldn't. Some of the videos I think would be exactly the same if I was Japanese or not. But I think being from a foreign perspective and being like, hey guys, look at this strange thing that goes on here.
Well, I think being a foreigner, you can do stuff which
Right.
Japanese can't do. And also they'll react differently to you because you're a foreigner.
True.
And perhaps even in a more honest way.
Yeah, like I did a video where I joined a host club in Japan quite a while back, which I feel like you're saying it, I don't think it would work if you're Japanese, because why would you want to film it? It's just a bit strange. And I mean, it's quite underground to Japanese people, but to foreigners, there's almost no concept of host clubs. And so being able to go in there and kind of have an awkward reaction to it all, be like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I think because the concept is very familiar to a Japanese audience, it just
doesn't
wouldn't work for a
it's
Japanese
not
audience.
impressive.
Yeah.
I think going to a place where, to a British person, there's a bar where you just pay good-looking guys to talk to you and get drunk is just really odd, because that's every Weatherspoons, I guess, but not as good-looking. So it works, because I think that people who from America or Europe want to see this kind of strange stuff that just doesn't exist anywhere else, and Japan has so much of that to offer.
What about, maybe delicate subject, other YouTubers in Japan who are doing not the same as you, but similar to you? Other foreigners maybe talking about Japan.
Well,
how do you view them?
Well, I think all three of us can agree that, in our opinions, the best one to do it is Chris Broad, abroad in Japan. I mean, like, that guy has...
Don't want to stroke his ego too much.
Don't want to stroke his ego
He's
too
got
much.
big ego.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I don't look up to that guy in terms of like his quality of content, the way that he presents Japanese culture, and I mean, he's been doing it for just as long as I have, if not longer. So, but I definitely do feel that in terms of foreigners in Japan making content about Japan, there is very much a wide spectrum of the type of content you can do. There's a lot of travel stuff like what Chris does, and then there are other people who just sit in a room and talk about their experiences, which is kind of what we do. So, I mean, some of them we like, some of them not so much, but, again, at the end of the day, it's all personal preference.
I do think as content creators, you do have mutual respect, no matter what kind of content you make. Because there is, no matter whether it's, they do content about anime or Japan or something similar to you, there's always like a mutual respect that, hey, we have similar experiences because we're on the same platform, we're doing the same job. I mean, that's how I met these guys. It's because we were doing content on the same subjects, and so we naturally wanted to talk to each other and know each other, and that's how our friendship started.
And we all liked each other's content, so that was already just like a mutual, relationship there.
I think when there's not many people in your industry, you very much gravitate towards each other because you want to be able to share the same frustrations and experiences that you have.
I mean, what I was getting to is that not just YouTube, but in books. If you go to a bookstore in London, say, you go to Foyle's bookstore, and you look at their Japan section, all the books about Japan culture are ikebana and temples and mountain mist and stuff like that. There's almost nothing negative. It's like people are looking at Japan through rose-colored spectacles.
Right.
Do you think there's a lot of that? And do you think Trash Taste is kind of like the counterpoint to that?
It's tough. Go on.
I wouldn't say with the counterpoint. I would say maybe early on you didn't hear a lot of a lot of the negative parts of maybe living in Japan because because no one knew anything about Japan at all. And I think now in the age of the internet, you get a lot more eyes, you get a lot more cameras on just every kind of aspect of Japanese life. And I don't know if Trash Taste filled in any void, if there was a void, but it was definitely a much more down to earth view of Japan, and I'm not sure how much of that had been done before or how much had been covered before Trash Taste.
Yeah, I think when you're writing a book or you're a pamphlet or a guide on Japan, I think you kind of put those daily frustrations aside to focus on the work, right? And I think that you think maybe having trouble with the ATM closing at 5 p.m. for some reason, you don't really think much about it. But I guess when you get around with your friends and you start talking about it, you're like, yeah, that is really dumb. Why do they do that? Why does the ATM just turn off at 5 p.m. or something? You know, it's kind of this thing that gets amplified, and you kind of remember more of these frustrations in this setting, as opposed to maybe even if on a YouTube video, you might be thinking more formal and try to make a more structured approach to it, and you normally end up putting the negative stuff aside, because and typically people aren't too fond of negativity unless it's done in a certain way with the content. So there's a lot of that at play.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the negative things we talk about in Japan are not like big negative things that maybe people would think to write about in like in a more journalistic setting, because it's a lot of like the little things that really the little things of like living life here in Japanese life that we really talk about, as opposed to like maybe big social issues or much bigger issues that you might see in other mediums per se.
So Chris Broad, for example, does sort of do negative stuff, but he does it in a very kind of conservative way, if you like.
Yeah.
He kind of does it in like an almost retrospective way, where he kind of presents both sides of the story and leaves it basically to the viewers to decide how they want to feel about it. And if this particular video in this particular place or experience or culture in Japan is something that is perceived positively for a certain person or negatively for a certain person, then that's kind of their prerogative and not so much up to the content creator. And I like to think I kind of do something similar when it comes to things like anime and manga and stuff like that. Especially if it's a polarizing work, I like to present both sides of the argument and leave it up to an audience, rather than kind of trying to spoon feed an audience to be like, this is bad and you should think that this is bad, or this is good because you should think that it's good. I think, I mean, in that sense, I feel like a content creator does have some level of responsibility if they do decide to tackle subject matter in that way. But, I mean, people like Chris do it pretty well, in my opinion. So,
And do you think it helps that he's British?
Yes.
I think so. I think so.
It sounds like a biased thing you say, because I'm British and you guys are
I mean, I do think that culture does play a part, because I mean, British culture is just steeped in cynicism. So it just feels more natural for us to just, a lot of Brits complain about a lot of things, and especially like my experience with a lot of Americans is that, it's somewhat much more. They go for like the more positive view on things a lot of the times.
It's kind of like an irony-free zone, right?
Yeah.
Japan is also like an irony-free zone.
Yeah.
And I feel like the UK is very similar to Japan in many ways, but also the complete opposite. And I feel like the whole aspect of, in Japan, a lot of people seem to online like to think that everything is so deep and everything has a really important meaning. And in the Britain, it couldn't be more opposite, where we just think, oh yeah, it's a Wetherspoons, it's what it is, it's a pub. And I think when you bring those two aspects and those ideas together, you get some really interesting commentary from people like Chris and hopefully us. But who knows, probably not. I just think it makes for good entertainment as well.
Yeah.
How do you see your specials developing?
Or hopefully better, hopefully bigger.
Is that just sort of like Trash Taste on the road, or are they going to be thematic?
For us, the specials we've liked to think is just kind of an excuse for us to get out of the house and do something fun that we otherwise couldn't really make on our own personal channels.
Yeah. I think we're also very inspired by Top Gear as well, obviously.
Like that whole dynamic of they just do whatever they just do whatever they want.
I think from our perspective and from our audience perspective, we think we have a good chemistry. Hopefully, that's why people watch us, right? But I feel like it can go beyond just us talking. It can go, it's like whenever you have fun with mates, you can have fun with mates, whatever you're doing. And I feel like doing new activities or doing wild ideas is just that. Doesn't really need to be much thought put into it. Just turn on the camera and you'll just get some entertaining moments like anyone does when they hang out with their mates.
Okay, we're getting lots of questions being sent in from people who are watching or people who want to attack you.
Okay.
And the first one is, which I'm sure you can relate to, can we get the speaker's opinions on crust on pizza?
Gosh.
That's how you know the trash taste audience is watching.
Very, very professional journalism
Yeah.
questions.
Can you just give us the background on that one? You were saying that...
So I have come out as someone who doesn't eat my crust on pizzas, and ever since then, ever since I said that opinion, it garnered a lot of outrage. Probably like this one opinion is in my entire career. The one opinion that's garnered the most outrage out of anything.
It's probably the most controversial thing we've said on Trash Taste.
Understandably so, frankly. And I think that goes to show what kind of like trash taste is. In one week it might be us talking about, the Japanese coronavirus response, and the next week we'll be at each other's throats because Garn isn't eating his crust as he should. And I that's the kind of vibe that I hope that the viewers get, and then we try to give off is that it's like being with your friend. One time you're talking about politics, the next talking about what you're going to order at the restaurant.
It's an interesting point. I don't think I've ever eaten pizza in England.
What?
How?
Okay, but
Okay, that's the
very strange point.
So, is there a difference between Japanese pizza and English pizza? I wouldn't know.
I mean,
Both fine.
pizza's pizza, right?
Yeah.
They're both fine.
yeah.
Japanese pizza isn't that good, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the new thing in the last time I ordered a pizza was having the cheese in the crust.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
crust, yeah.
That's
Would you eat
crust.
that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll eat crust if I need to eat crust, but I don't enjoy it. So I don't enjoy eating.
I
the
didn't
crust.
expect this conversation to
Only,
come
only
up.
the important conversation at the FCC. Yeah.
And I didn't expect to get properly political today, but
Well,
He has the gavel as well, so it is almost like a trial.
We're going on a touchy subject, so...
You're on trial right now, John.
well, you make me sweat with these questions now.
The next question may be redundant. What's the worst criticism you've received from Japanese people about your show?
Oh,
I guess
it was probably the reacting thing, wasn't it?
yeah. So on YouTube there was this kind of trend. I don't know if it's still going or not, but I think it might be. Maybe not as strongly. I don't know. But basically there was this entire trend that was going on where it was Japanese people reacting to
Anything.
to anything essentially, and we kind of posed our frustrations on that because. God, I don't even remember what we were complaining about.
I think because there was just there was so many videos. Originally, it was Japanese people reacting to this one online creator who's quite controversial, who's half Japanese, and then and that was seeing a lot of views, a lot of views, millions of views to this one type of creator, and then people started realizing. Just putting the words Japanese person reacts to anything started doing really well. It didn't matter
So
what
they started
it
to
was.
exploit that essentially for ways that just didn't make sense.
As I would. If I was Japanese, you bet I would have been making those videos. And they would react to anything. And I think we were getting frustrated because they were reacting to some really bizarre stuff and really mundane stuff. And it was, I think, a lot of those channels got very annoyed at us. And we were like, you can't say we can't do this. But again, it was our opinion at the time.
Yeah.
And reaction videos have this sort of a bit infamous on YouTube for being, I suppose, sometimes content stealing because they might just play. And one of the big things that happened is that, for example, there was a video by Chris called, what was it, 12 Things Not to Do in Japan?
Yeah, it was like one of his most viewed videos.
12 Things Not to Do in Japan. And they would just play the whole video in full at times. And that's a question of, can you just play the whole video in full?
Yeah.
Now Chris might be losing views. And so it's quite a touchy subject on YouTube. They were not very happy about that when we
So
didn't
can
like
we
it.
expect lots of reaction videos to this video?
Probably not. I mean, I don't know. It's already done and dusted now at this point, probably.
And the same, this is from a member of the club here, asks, what was the best compliment that you've received?
Being invited to the
FCC,
Club Japan, of course.
I mean, we would have honestly, like we never would have thought that talking about anime would end with us being here, So
I literally just sent my mum a picture to be like, well, how did I end up here?
this is probably the most legitimate thing that we've ever done in our careers.
So you're still working on your mother's for forgiveness?
my mum's turned around now.
I have to keep reassuring to my mom that I have an actual job. Like this is a real job that seeps rewards.
I judge my success by how long I can maintain my mum's interest in what I'm doing. If it's 5 minutes,
How's
it's
that
good.
working for you?
I did tell her about this, and she was like, "I have no idea what that is. That sounds good, though."
Okay, next question is, do you agree that a continuous stream of weird Japan kind of stories prevents the actual issues from being discussed and resolved properly?
Regarding Japan,
Yeah.
it's a tough question. It's hard to talk about.
Kind of papers over the cracks of the
Right.
crap in Japan.
Sometimes it feels like it's impossible to talk about problems in Japan because people in Japan don't want to talk about the problems of Japan.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the hardest thing to get over.
Nobody's talking to each other about that kind of stuff.
Right, like people don't talk about politics here in Japan. And, you know.
It's more so just young people don't have an interest whatsoever to politics here, so nothing changes.
And it's frustrating because sometimes it's hard to talk about something that they don't want you to talk about. You know what I mean?
And for me personally, I also feel like I'm not the most qualified to maybe talk about these issues. I mean, you think about it, it's just like, one Japanese person and two foreigners who've been living here for just over a year. And
But I also think you don't need to be a 40-year-old Japanese resident to see that there's issues. I think every country has issues, and I think that there's absolutely tons of problems with the UK, and I don't mind if people say that to me. But sometimes it's a bit more touchy with Japan. And I think that's because they're a bit reluctant to criticize things themselves here.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier about the media in Japan is
Right.
very benign, if you
It's
like.
like hyper positive.
yeah.
And there's no kind of, if you look at the media in England, where everybody's at each,
Oh, we
each
absolutely
other's
grill
throat.
our politicians to death.
Yeah.
In the
But here,
UK.
every story in every newspaper is almost identical, sometimes literally identical.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't have this kind of debate. And an opinion is not a good thing here. Opinion is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Saying, the old nail that sticks up gets hammered down. Whereas
Right.
you were probably 3 nails, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's the problem, right? Is that Japan traditionally is a collectivist society. So if you aren't following the crowd, then you're the one that's going to be pulled out of the equation. Whereas in countries like the UK, Australia, America, it's an individualistic society. So they actually advise you to have an opinion and stand out and say what's on your mind and that kind of stuff. And I feel that's the reason why there's so much change happening in those countries compared to in Japan.
I did a press event not too long ago, and one thing that shocked me is that normally in press events, I thought that you were allowed to just go to the press event and say what you want, and that was typically how every single press event I'd done had gone. I'd learned that I had to get approval for the press event that I went to from what I wanted to publish about, and I was really shocked because I was just like, this is so bizarre. It's a press event. Why can't I just publish what I want to publish about it? And so that really caught me off guard. And that's another thing that I've only ever experienced in Japan.
Yeah, the press is not allowed to be opinionated.
It's sometimes it's hardly a press event if you get to control what they say.
It's just a fan club
It's
at
free
that point, isn't it?
advertising at that point.
And even most Japanese press conferences that I see and you see on TV and everything like that.
There's no criticism. No tough
I mean,
questions.
like all the questions are pre-screened and approved by the person who's going to answer them. So it's you don't really see, especially in like interviews or Japanese interviews or anything, you don't really see any hard questions or any troubling topics because they're not going to be brought up or they're not going to be approved. And if you try to get those questions approved, then you're just going to be rejected and you're not going to be able to be in the industry. That's my experience with that.
It is quite frustrating trying to get news about Japan from Japanese sources because sometimes it does feel very cherry-picked.
Yes,
So,
you're right. Next question is, what are some ideas that you have for trash taste specials?
Nothing we can really share at the
we want to
moment.
keep it a secret. To
Yeah,
be fair. We have some big ideas, but we want to surprise.
We want to
people.
maintain the element of surprise for our audience. So, I mean, we have ideas. We just don't really want to say specifics.
Nice try.
Nice try.
Appreciate it.
Well, this is fairly simple. How long do you think this YouTube job gonna last?
I mean,
That's a question you get a lot, actually.
Yeah. I mean, every year I think this is going to be my last year, and then it doesn't end up being my last year. So.
But the way I also see it as well is, I'm in absolutely no rush to jump into a career. I find that I think people are more often far too quick to try and decide their career right out of university or right out of high school. And I think that's almost quite sad because I feel like you need to I think it's quite healthy to explore yourself and explore the options that you have. And, even if this YouTube thing completely failed within 2 months, I'd have had so many experiences that people could only dream of. And sure, I might not be financially stable anymore, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's everything. And having a career and a job that's sustainable isn't always everything.
And it's also hard as well for YouTubers because, unlike traditional jobs and, things like TV actors and radio personalities or whatever, where we've seen past examples of people doing it, from their 20s to retirement. Because YouTube as a platform is not even 20 years old at this point, we have no idea whether this YouTuber job is a thing that someone can do from start to finish.
Yeah. So I've worked at McDonald's once, and I can do it again if I need to. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, right now, like I feel like because YouTube's such a young platform, there's no precedent, so we don't know if we can make careers, and especially it's a platform on the internet as well. And as someone who works on the internet, it's a very fast-changing platform, and like something that's relevant this year could be like old news next year. And I think that's the scary thing about having a job on the internet. But I feel like right now, media is kind of slowly switching over. It used to be a big thing where if you're a big YouTuber, then by next year you wouldn't have a job anymore. Like job security just didn't exist with YouTube. But now we have YouTubers who have maintained a much longer career than had previously been achieved before. And I feel like we are just now kind of, like every YouTuber doesn't know, we're figuring things out. We are the ones like setting the precedent now, I guess you could say. So we don't know. We just are trying to do this for as long as possible. And there's a possibility that you being a YouTuber could be a long-lasting career if you play your cards right. And there's also a possibility that you could not have a job next year. We just don't know right now.
I think we talked about it before that probably the most popular job that people want in Japan now is to be a YouTuber.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Including my 13-year-old daughter. So what advice would you have either for them or for their parents?
First, I personally would, and this is a thing that I definitely thought I wanted to do, no matter what, no matter how long my YouTube career was going to last, but just finish school, just like get that degree. If you're going to
we all have
university,
degrees.
yeah, we all have degrees, and that's because it's a thing that does not hurt to have, especially if you decide to become a YouTuber and you're like, I'm going to do this for the next 30 years, but then something happens, whether it was in or out of your control, and you only end up doing it for 3 months. And so what are you going to do? If you're out of university, you don't have a degree, you don't have any work experience, you're kind of screwed in that sense. So I guess like my personal advice is you can never have too many backup plans. So as you're like building your YouTube career, it's a good idea to just have like a what if something happens, what am I going to do? I'm going to start building that now so that if it does happen tomorrow or later the same day, then I have a safety net. So I'm not going to be completely unemployed.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree about the safety net thing. And I think one big thing about being a YouTuber, which a lot of people, I guess, don't really talk about or, kind of gloss over, because people talk about, you got to make a video on this subject or learn how to title and thumbnail your videos and stuff like that. But I feel like by far the most important thing about being a YouTuber or content creator online is that you have to watch a lot of YouTube.
Yeah.
And I feel like that gets glossed over because you can never explain to someone who doesn't watch a lot of YouTube what the hot trends are, because the trends are constantly changing, right? So if you're not watching hours and hours of YouTube every day, then you're not going to know what the trends are, and you're not going to know how the trends are constantly changing or how to really go about making your videos, because it's such a fast-moving platform that you're going to be kept behind. And part of the job is to watch and consume a lot of content yourself, because you yourself are a content creator.
You have to love it. You have to really love the platform, I think, and everything, the culture around it.
Yeah. So I mean, if you watch a lot of YouTube, then that's a big part of it already. And then if you already watch a lot of YouTube, then you should have maybe not like a conscious understanding, but a subconscious understanding of, hey, I'm watching this kind of content, or I'm gravitating to this kind of content, or this kind of content is really popular right now. And you can turn that experience into content yourself because you have an understanding of how the platform works itself.
Yeah.
And then there's the practical side of it. People think, I have my iPhone or Android phone and I can just go and do something. But I mean, obviously Chris Broad is almost a documentary maker now, but your guys with your specials, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into a production like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't actually, it doesn't click sometimes.
Yeah, I think as a YouTuber, one of the things that mindset that you have to learn very quickly is I want to do something, I have to learn how to do it. You know, be it editing software, using equipment.
I mean, we never knew how to use cameras or microphones or any of that kind of stuff. We had to learn on the job because we had that wanting to up our production quality. I mean, you know, I started on an iPhone 3 with using the microphone inside the iPhone 3, you know, and like nowadays, I mean, I feel YouTubers starting off now have it a lot easier because, I mean, the newest iPhone now has quality that is just as good as some, you know, high-end cameras out there. But, you know, at the end of the day, if I didn't have that want of wanting to improve the production quality, improve my quality of content, then I probably would still be filming on that same iPhone. But it's still doable. I mean, there are still some people out there who kind of use that low quality aesthetic to their advantage.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think you just see someone else making a video and it looks really good and you're like, how do they do that? And then maybe you ask them or
you look into it in some way.
You look into it, and you know, before I did YouTube, I was doing voice acting and I still do some voiceover. And I was just always obsessed with microphones. So I just learned so much about audio and audio production. And that's become really handy, you know, with the podcast and we do the specials. Audio is always a nightmare. So and then, you know, we do those specials normally with aside from us, maybe 2 or 3 people extra at most. Yeah. And we'd like to think that it looks like a lot more people helped out than they did.
Okay. In terms of expanding your own channels or even expanding Trash Taste, do you have any plans that you can reveal or anything that you want to do which you're not doing now?
I mean, at least for my own content, this year I kind of started to branch not so much away from anime, but definitely more towards just my personality. So I think I've released more videos this year that have not necessarily had to do specifically with anime than actual anime content. And that's not to say that I don't like anime anymore, or, you know, I want to move away from it or anything. Like I do want to like keep to my roots as much as possible, but again, it's that whole thing of Trash Taste has really given me that boost in confidence of, oh, I can make whatever I want as long as it's interesting to me and people are still willing to watch. So I'll be doing that this year and it's worked out pretty well for me and I've been having probably the most fun I've ever had making content this year. So yeah, that's just me personally, but what about you guys?
I just have fun. I think I want to still maintain that. I think it's hard to sometimes keep the fun in a job. I think I'm just desperately trying to do everything I can to keep it fresh and keep it entertaining.
Just try new things all the time.
Yeah, and I'm doing a lot more live content now, which I'm really enjoying. Again, it's just, you know, I'm always trying to change and always adapt and stay ahead of the curve and, you know, not become irrelevant, I guess, is the scary word.
Yeah, I guess for me, I mean, we're all content creators as well, so we all take some pride in our content, and for me it really comes down to I just want to make something that I'm proud of, and not every video is going to be the best video you've ever made, but you know, you always want to make something or work towards making something that you are very proud of. And I get bored of my own content very easily, so I'm always searching for a new style or something new to do, and I don't always know what that is, but that's always what I'm searching towards.
Yeah, I mean, the next question kind of ties into that is what sort of influences you have. We've talked about Chris Broad and his high level of production, but are there any other like YouTube channels or people who influence what you're actually doing?
We did an entire Trash Taste episode about that, where we kind of shared each other's like YouTube channels that we like to watch and have gained influence.
Yeah, I always loved Louis Theroux. I loved his style of documentaries. I always found it really interesting. Just the way he handled it and the level of awkwardness that
traditional
was
media as well. Definitely, we've taken a lot of. I mean, you know, all the specials on Trash Days are, you know, very heavily inspired by Top Gear, right?
Yeah.
So
and I love Charlie Brooker as well. I think even before his work on Black Mirror, he was doing some amazing work, especially in like his Newswipe and year reviews. I took a lot of inspiration from that, but I feel like YouTubers also take a lot of inspiration from each other, and not a lot of people talk about it, but I feel like it's something that everyone does. And you think about musicians, and people are very open with their influences in music as well, and I feel like it's the same in any creative field, and YouTube is exactly the same, where YouTubers are also influenced by other YouTubers as well.
Okay, I don't understand this question. Maybe you will. When is the Trash Taste Apex Legends special?
That's probably not going to happen for a little while.
This would take too long to explain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you ready to try or not?
Well, if you want to.
There's a video game that I really liked, and these guys won't play with me. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I choose to not play it just to spite.
And he's been trying to get us to
just
play
to
it.
annoy him.
Then we haven't been playing.
It's good though. I think it annoys them more than it annoys me now because they keep getting asked.
I can't escape it anywhere.
I
Apparently.
know. Yeah, it's great.
For all three members, what are your thoughts on settling in Japan for good? Or perhaps long term?
I mean, I don't even know what I'm going to do next week, let alone for the rest of my life. So
I couldn't see myself raising kids in Japan.
Yeah, nor can I, but
Yeah. I guess, maybe. Well, I might not have a say, but
yeah.
I don't know. Right now, I'm really enjoying life in Japan, despite all the some frustrating paperwork I have to do. But yeah, it's really enjoyable. And like Gant said, the quality of life in Japan is amazing. And it's very safe, and people are very friendly. And yeah, I mean, right now I'm really enjoying it, and I have no immediate plans to leave.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I think out of the boys here, I've probably lived in the most different places, and I had like this thought in my head that I will just go to the more places I live in, the more places I go to, eventually I'm going to know what the kind of place I want to settle down in. And the more places I've lived in, the less I've been able to figure that out because it's because every place you live in, you find the positives and negatives of every place you go to, and you kind of realize that there is no perfect place to live in. So for me personally, I would say that I'm definitely going to be staying here for a few more years. I'm enjoying my life here. In terms of permanently settling down, I have absolutely no idea where I even want to permanently settle down.
Yeah, I think there comes a point where the point of no return,
Yeah.
where you kind of get to a stage and it's more difficult to go anywhere else, or especially to go home.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you've lived overseas for a long time, like myself, you don't relate so well to what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess like I've always had the mentality of I'll cross that bridge when I get to it kind of mentality.
Pretty much how I've just lived my life.
Yeah, that's how I've lived my life. So it's kind of the same thing, really. Yeah.
Simple question. Would you change anything? It says, well, are you guys happy with where you are now? I think you are. Would you change anything? What would you change?
I would change my username.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I only called myself the Anime Man because that's what my website was originally called when I made it. But I very quickly realized how restricting this name is because, if you go onto a channel called The Anime Man, what do you expect? You expect anime content. But, as much as I like anime, I have so many other interests and so many other things I want to talk about and make videos on, but it's just a lot more difficult to talk about something that's not anime related on a channel called The Anime Man. And that's why I've always been jealous of these two guys as usernames, because it's like, they could talk about whatever they want and it wouldn't really be as weird or as jarring at first glance.
Sorry, Sea Dog, what's the...
Absolutely no meaning into it. I just thought when I was 15, I thought, wow, that sounds really cool, doesn't it? It is absolutely not cool at all. I'm the opposite of cool in every sense of the word. So, yeah. I mean, I don't really regret it though. I mean, it's easy to say. So that's kind of like half the challenge with YouTube names. Just don't pick something that's super long-winded.
I think Gant has like the perfect balance of like username, in my opinion.
I actually just lucked out because Giguk was just a family name. Because most Thai people they have their real name, and they have like a nickname. And my nickname was Gig, and my family, there was a lot of play on words with gig, and Giguk was like one of the nicknames that came out of that, and it was just what I was called, so that was just a username that I didn't think about, and now I guess it's my online persona brand or whatever you'd call it, right?
Okay. When will you talk about anime? Well, we're not going to talk about anime.
No, no.
You can do
You
that.
should
somewhere
know
else.
this by now. We don't talk about anime.
How are Grant and Connor persevering in their pursuit to learn Japanese?
Oh gosh.
I want to know too.
I thought you were their
Well, no, because
evaluator.
I've offered to them saying that if they ever want to practice Japanese with someone who's native, i.e. me, then I'm very much open to it. I mean, I do it with my girlfriend every day when I'm at home, so I'm used to it. But for some reason, these two refuse to cooperate.
It's just intimidating to talk to Joey in Japanese.
Why?
Because I've known him as a mate for so long, and
I'm not going to judge you.
I mean, it's weird asking your friends for help sometimes. I don't know why that is, but sometimes it is.
I don't know. Like I feel more. I feel more. I don't know. Comfortable. I guess messing up in front of strangers. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I really like messing up in front of strangers. I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm never going to see you again. It's fun. It's I feel like it's getting to know someone is a challenge in itself, and added in with the whole language barrier, just makes it more fun for me personally.
I mean, for me, like my Japanese learning journey, I should say, is very up and down, or was very up and down, because I was taking it because I don't go to Japanese school. I'm completely self-study right now, and so the biggest thing that I've had to fight against is motivation, because I was very, very consistent when I first moved to Japan, and then COVID hit, and that just took away all of my motivation to learn. Took my motivation to do a lot of things, because I was going to the gym before then as well, and then that just stopped. And it's only been in the last few months where that motivation has picked back up, I think, just because the world situation is improving, and I've really been taking my Japanese learning a lot more seriously. But because of that, because I've had such a big gap between stop learning before COVID and starting learning again, it feels like I'm going back up from zero. But it's been a lot of fun, and I'm not at the place I want to be yet. But hopefully in another year, if I continue this, then I'll be a lot better.
Okay, next one will be in Japanese. Okay, who would you like as a guest on your Trash Taste?
I mean, usually we decide guests on a unanimous vote. So essentially, if one of us, or our producer comes up and says, "Hey, I know someone who would be interesting to talk to. I think would be a great fit for the show. That we can kind of, invite onto the show. What do you think?" And if all three of us say yes, then we say yes. And I think as of right now, we don't really have like a limit on the type of guest or anything. I mean, we've had 10. Yeah, we've had 10 guests so far on the show in the past year, and it's been an eclectic array of like all sorts of different personalities and people. And I think at the end of the day, it's really just if they're willing to hang out with us, really, and be friends with us at the end of the day, because that's what we strive to kind of achieve.
Really, I think more guests have just been a way for us to make new friends.
Yeah.
And then also record a podcast on top of that.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, I guess it's been kind of difficult for the past year because we've only really been able to get guests who are in Japan right now. So hopefully when the world opens up, we'll have a lot more people coming in. But I mean, as of right now, it's just if anyone's interested, then, please come onto the show.
Yeah, exactly.
When is Joey going to get married?
I don't know. That's for me to decide, I guess.
What are your thoughts on the Japanese variety or entertainment scene?
I grew up watching a lot of Japanese variety shows and like comedy shows and talk shows and stuff like that. I mean, I learned a lot of Japanese from watching that kind of medium. I think though I completely stopped watching that kind of stuff when I was invited onto one of those shows and realized just how scripted and very like cold and calculated everything is. And it pretty much ruined my perception of those kinds of shows. And since then, I've never really been able to like watch those shows in the same way again. That's just me personally, but...
Can you give a little more color on what you're trying to say?
So essentially, I was invited onto this particular, I guess, like discussion or debating show where they get a bunch of foreigners who are living in Japan, and they put them in a room with a bunch of like authors and professionals who are Japanese, and they kind of tackle social issues about Japan and kind of get like a foreigner's perspective on those kinds of issues. And I agreed to that because I thought, oh wow, that's actually quite interesting. Like, I think that's a very important, kind of show that Japan kind of needs to have. And I was ready to, give my opinions on things and, hear opinions and, actually hear some kind of like social debate happening about important Japanese cultural issues and stuff like that. But what had ended up happening was just kind of a yes man show for about 2 hours where people were just agreeing with everybody and there was really no debate or discussion happening or anything. And I mean, I didn't even get a chance to speak at all. So it was essentially me on a show for 2 hours, just sitting there silently listening to a non-debate happening and no real conclusion or even takeaway from any of that kind of discussion. And that wasn't really so much the fault of the presenters or anything like that. Like, that was just how the show was structured from the beginning, and that's how the show was scripted from the beginning. And again, yeah, like it completely ruined my perception of these kinds of shows and how Japanese TV is structured, and how even though they might pose themselves as an opinionated show, it is just hyper positivity the entire way through. And yeah, and I just thought like, oh wow, this is really dumb and a massive waste of time. And I didn't even get paid for it either, so it was like an even more waste of time for me. I mean, I guess I can say I've been on Japanese TV before, but I mean, I'm not exactly proud of it, to be honest. And yeah, just my opinions on that, I guess.
Good. What specific countries are your individual channels or Trash Taste podcast channel itself most popular in that you didn't expect? So what countries are you popular in that you weren't expecting?
Philippines, I guess.
Yeah, Philippines, Indonesia.
Yeah, I just didn't expect that.
Russia.
Oh yeah, Russia.
Oh yeah, Russia.
We have an entire channel on YouTube of these Russian voice actors who dub over our episodes in Russian.
Trash
Yeah.
Taste, yeah.
Yeah.
Like for a full episode,
like a
they dub
full-
over.
That's really well done as
Yeah.
well. It's
And-
pretty professional.
What kind of views are they getting?
I think 50,000 to 100,000.
Yeah, but they don't monetize it, so we allow it. And yeah, we have a really dedicated Russian audience now who watches those dubs, and it's
cool to see people do.
it's just
interesting
really
things.
interesting because they managed to collect 3 Russian voice actors who sound very similar to us. So it's really
How scary is that?
It's quite scary.
Very scary.
I sound like a hitman in Russian. It's pretty interesting, actually.
It kind of sounds like he wrestles bears.
Yeah.
In his Russian.
It's pretty cool. I'm very happy.
It is very cool, yeah.
A question for Gand. How have you generally been treated as an Asian person living in Japan but not being Japanese?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I mean, I'd say it's been a mix because I think unfortunately being Thai here, I don't even feel like being Thai. I can play the Gaijin card, and in fact, I feel like I'm looked down upon for I'm a Gaijin, but not the white kind of Gaijin.
That is true. That's true.
It's unfortunate. I mean, we had a incident where we were at Joey's house, and unfortunately we got a noise complaint, and the police were called for the noise complaints, and so they called Joey up and asked him, who's in the house? And I wasn't the one making the noise, but Joey starts listing off everyone in the house. We have an American here, we have a British person here, and we have a Thai person here. And as soon as the police hear that there's a Thai person here, they call me up and they start interrogating me about how I'm here, why I'm here, and everything like that. And initially, because I have 2 passports, they initially asked for my Thai passport, so I give over my Thai passport, and that's when they start really questioning me. But as soon as I show that I have a British passport as well, as soon as I show that, then they let me go. And I had never experienced anything like that in my life so far. So, yeah, I mean, that was probably the worst experience I've had. But, in general, my experience here has been that some people assume I'm already Japanese, and when they realize that I'm not Japanese, then it's, you you kind of get treated a bit differently, as every foreigner does, but it's not the same kind of treatment as, you know, an American person or a British person or someone from the West would get, how someone would from the West would get viewed, I would say.
What about Connor? Have you experienced any racism here?
Nothing crazy. I mean, just I've never been stopped by the police before until I came to Japan. Like, I've never been stopped by the police ever. And I was like, whoa, this is so strange. I think that's my privilege is showing. But generally, the police were very friendly to me here, so I've never had to have any issues, even when they have stopped me and asked me for my Zario card, which I just thought was strange anyway. But they're always pretty nice to me, and I haven't really had anything massive outside of the obvious things that people always talk about, like people don't sit next to you on the train sometimes, but I don't really care about that. That's more room for me, frankly, so that's a win. And obviously the only issue I've ever had with it is perhaps when looking for housing, just being a foreigner full stop is where it might come into difficulty. And I've had agencies say, oh, well, the house owner might reject you depending on your nationality. And I'm like, well, can I have the spreadsheet of which ones are good and bad? I'd like to see this. But overall, no, not really.
Mm-hmm. Okay, is there anything you'd like to do on your channel that you haven't been able to do because you think there may be some kind of problem or it wouldn't be well received?
I mean, as I was saying earlier, like I have a lot of different interests other than anime. Before the whole YouTube thing, I was in a number of bands. I did a lot of like music stuff. So I've always thought I really want to talk about music because I love music. But if you're on a channel called The Anime Man and you stumble upon a video talking about why Led Zeppelin was the greatest rock band in the 70s, it's a bit jarring and it probably wouldn't do as well. So yeah, that's something I've been trying to branch out into. I have like a second channel where I kind of just upload whatever I want that's not particularly anime related, that I've been trying to do that kind of stuff with. So that's kind of slowly growing in the background. But is it okay if I go to the toilet?
Yeah.
You said that so sad. This
is the first for the SCCJ, mind you. They locked you in.
He's locked in. He can't get out.
Joe, you like your door there? Yeah.
I love how he just stopped mid-sentence.
Yeah, I feel like he could have ended his sentence there before he actually entered the toilet.
Well, we're staying live here on the YouTube channel, and we have a question for Connor. How do you get guests to open up to you?
Guests to open up? I don't know. How do we get guests? I think that everyone just wants to have a nice time.
I think that was specifically for you on your own channel.
I think I don't ever try to, even if it's something I don't understand or something I'm not particularly fond of, like I never thought I'd be making a video about pole dancing. But, I always try, when I do go anywhere and I talk to anyone or I meet someone, especially for a video, and they might be doing something again I don't understand, I always try to show them that whatever we're doing, I'm up for it. And, I did a video where I went to, there's a cross-dressing cafe in Akihabara. And one of my requests was before we ever filmed the videos, I want to join in. Because I find that I want to gain like a mutual respect from them. And I feel like the best way to gain respect from someone who is doing something that they might think is strange is, well, can I do it as well? Let's talk about it. Let me experience what you're doing. And I also think going there with an attitude of, not wanting to mock and not wanting to, just be mean in general and just be open and just show that, I think everyone's insecure, everyone's awkward, and I'm no stranger to that. And I like to just go into it, and confidence with a bit of awkward is what I try to do. So, and I find that that's quite comforting to people.
Okay. Any plans to create content in Japanese or for a Japanese audience?
I think that's more a question for Joey, because I think it would take a few years before our language level would get to that point where.
What about? I mean, you've got a Russian dubbed version of trashtaste. What about a Japanese dubbed?
I don't know. I think hiring voice actors to dub out is extremely expensive and tedious. So the fact that they just do it for they.
But if you're getting 100,000 viewers, which you'll probably get more, then it might be worth it.
Could be. It could also be, do you want that audience? Sometimes not necessarily another audience is a good idea, and it might conflict with the audience you have.
Yes.
So it's always tough. And I think sometimes, a Japanese audience is receptive to different things than a Western audience. So maybe you do a topic that might annoy a part of your audience. And I don't ever want to have to think, if I do this, I'm going to annoy some of my audience. I should focus. I should do this. I should do that, depending on the language.
I think it's just journalists who set out to annoy people.
Maybe. I can't comment on that.
or can't help annoying people.
Perhaps.
Right.
Connor, why are you not wearing the JoJo suit?
This is a JoJo suit, actually. This is one of 4 that I own. So
I'm also wearing a JoJo
yours
suit.
as well.
Now you have to tell me what a JoJo suit is.
Well, JoJo is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a very popular manga and anime series in Japan, and it's extremely popular in the West. Of a few years ago, it's just blown up in popularity. And people love it because it's just very strange and bizarre. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Perfect Suit Factory, which is the suit making company in Japan, did an official collaboration with that series and made suits based off of characters.
I'm the #1 fan of their suits. I love
these
them.
are just 2 of them, but I think they've released 7 of them?
There's
There's a lot.
yeah, sort of. It's kind of there's like 6.
So it's a big seller at the Perfect Suit Company.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how well it sells in Japan, but I know people outside Japan really want them.
Yeah. It's an anime that's very popular internationally. So, I don't know how well it sells in Japan, but I'm sure if they sold internationally, it would sell really, really well.
I think so, yeah.
We're getting masses of questions and we don't really have that much time, so I'll go through them quickly. How do you feel about having so many people watching you?
It's normal now. I don't know.
Well, this is live. Your podcast isn't live, right?
Yeah.
No, but we do
No strangers to live events.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we do live events as well under Trash Taste, just over on a different website, and we get quite a bit of people watching that as well. So
I feel like it's easy to kind of have a dissonance between the people watching you because all you see as a YouTuber is a number, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't really sink in just how many people would watch you until you go to an actual live event like a convention or something and you see a room full of thousands of people at your panel or whatever and you're like, damn, this is a lot of people. And I feel like that's when it sinks in, but when you're just doing work online and you see 100,000 views on this video, it's just
That doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean
it's just
anything,
numbers.
Okay, well, just talk a little bit about, maybe you can't talk about recent ones because of the pandemic.
Yep.
But before that, what kind of live events did you do? And what kind of reaction
Well,
did you get?
a lot of the times, we would get invited to anime conventions to do a guest appearance. And normally at these anime conventions, you would do a panel or some kind of on stage performance. Most of the time, it's a panel.
kind of similar to this.
Yeah, kind of similar to this actually.
Very much so, actually.
And
Same size audience.
I probably joke a lot more as well. That
Yeah, and I think last time I did a panel was at Anime Expo, which is one of the biggest anime conventions in the world right now. And me and Joey were on a panel there, and I think we filled up a room of 2,000 people. And we filled up a room of 2,000 people, and they had to cut people off as well because the line got too long. And when you're sitting there on stage with 2,000 people watching you in person, it's way harder than having 20,000 people watching you on Twitch or something like that.
Yeah.
It's way more nerve-wracking.
Yeah, same.
I honestly, Gon couldn't have said it better.
It is infinitely
I
more
agree.
nerve-wracking, when it's in person.
I concur.
I concur.
Yeah.
Any chance we will see original anime or manga from Trash Taste?
Oh no, I don't know, but I don't think
I
so.
don't think so, no.
Maybe, I don't know if a studio wants to hit us up.
I mean, we're always down to try it out, but
Yeah.
I think as of right now, we're not really seeking anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, here's an easy one. What's the most unique experience you have had in Japan?
You said that's an easy one. I think that's a really hard one.
Yeah.
What, going to a bar where boys kiss each other?
That's very unique.
Hold on, I think.
But it all starts to blend into one unique experience. You're like, oh, which one is the most unique? I don't know.
I mean, most the good thing about being a YouTuber is most of your unique experiences are on camera.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, probably for me, the drifting thing I was really cool. I never thought
Yeah.
I would be able to try out drifting in my life. and that was just a really cool thing to do. And it was really
Cycling
fun.
across islands as
Yeah.
well was like really fun as well and unique.
Getting to work in a host club for one night was a very, very unique experience, and my liver did not appreciate it.
Okay, we have an anime question.
Oh no.
What do you think, which anime is to be considered as the masterpiece?
I think that's completely depends on what you personally perceive to be a masterpiece. Jesus.
That's like trying to say what the best film of all time is, right? I don't think anyone can answer that question.
I can.
Oh, can you?
Like universally speaking.
No, I think the two, well, good.
Yeah, all right, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So they want your opinion.
I mean, it's hard for me because my favorite anime changes all the time, depending on what kind of mood I'm in.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Sorry to cut you off, Gone.
Yeah, you can answer.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is mine. It's a masterpiece.
We'll take that. We'll take that as an answer.
Geez, I don't even know.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one, maybe. God, it's so hard.
I couldn't pick one.
Yeah, like there's lots of masterpieces out there.
Yeah.
I can't just pick one. I don't know. Next question.
What would you do if you had a chance to be a voice actor in anime, or have you done that?
I have done that.
I sadly haven't had the honor.
I got to be official voice actor on one anime series. Only for like one episode though. It wasn't a major role or anything, but I got to voice act next to some pretty prominent Japanese voice actors. And that was an amazing experience. Connor and I recently voice acted in a pretty successful game series together as in Japan. And I mean, I think in terms of voice acting, Connor's definitely had the most experience out of the three of us.
I haven't done anime though.
Really?
Well, because normally the way it's done in studios and locations, so it's quite hard to. You have to be in the right place. So
You have to know the right people, I feel, to get into anything like that.
yeah, they don't dub much English anime in Japan, so it's a bit difficult.
Yeah.
What's an idea for anime that you haven't seen that you really want made into anime?
Well, if I knew, then I would probably make it myself, to be honest.
I would like to see a chess anime.
I'd like that. Yeah.
I don't think a chess anime exists, but I think a chess anime would do very well.
Yeah. We've had shogi before, and we've had mahjong and all these like Japanese board games, but never. I don't think we've ever had one
I
about
don't
chess.
think we've ever had chess anime.
So someone should make that. If not, I'll make it.
I'm surprised. Okay, just a few left. What genre of anime is your favorite?
We have a lot of anime questions.
Oh, yes, Rick James, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Genre.
I like psychological horror, just because it's kind of dark and depressing and gloomy, and I like that kind of stuff.
I like thrillers. Thrillers are good. I love thriller animes.
Isekai.
Oh god. Terrible.
Terrible. It's really living up to the trash taste name right there, without opinion.
One thing you would change about Japan?
Oh man, there's so many little things that I want to change.
I think the biggest thing that I want is just for Japanese people to not be afraid to like fully express themselves, and that could be on a multitude of levels. Like, I feel a lot of Japanese people can't even really express themselves amongst their like group of friends at school and stuff like that, and that's why Japan has that whole bullying problem. That I've heard is like some of the worst in the world. And again, like that all stems from, I feel, Japan just being, again, like a collectivist society where you're not allowed to be individualistic. You're not allowed to stick out of the crowd because you're going to be the one that's cast aside. So, yeah, I don't know. Just if I were to change one thing, it's just be like, just hold your own ground, I guess, and just kind of be proud of being weird, because that's what we did and we managed to make a career out of it. So,
yeah, I think for me, if I'm talking like broad general terms, I would like it if, Japanese society as a whole was just more open to ideas from outside of Japan. Because I feel like my experience living in Japan is like, this is the way things are, and it's going to stay this way because it's always been this way. Even if, some other things might make sense. Like, I feel like, especially in the Japanese workplace, people didn't even consider the possibility of, for example, working from home until COVID happened. And then COVID happened, and then, companies started started making people work from home, and then it was only a global pandemic that made a lot of Japanese companies realize, hey, this is actually more efficient in some ways. And,
Yeah, they were throwing around the word teleworking or like, working remotely as if it was like a new thing that was invented when everyone outside of Japan knows people have been doing that for decades now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
And I feel like this is just one example out of many where, if if society as a whole was more open to the possibility of ideas coming from like what other countries are doing or what's going on outside Japan, I feel like a lot of things can be changed for the better.
I just don't understand why the ATMs stop working. It baffles me. The workers don't stop, but the ATMs take breaks. What's up with that?
I think when they first had ATMs, I think they only opened when the banks were open.
Wow.
it's like, what's the point of an ATM?
I feel like the per worker at the bank worked longer than the ATM did, which is I don't think the ATM needs a break, but I think that's just Garn already said what I wanted to say, so
Honestly, I think the statement I made about taking ideas from other places mostly applies to my experiences with Japanese banks. That's
And I think if we could answer all these questions, then we wouldn't have subjects to put into YouTube videos.
True, exactly. If Japan was perfect, we wouldn't have a very good job.
Okay, I think we're out of time, which is unfortunate, but it's been a great 2 hours and very informative, and I hope our viewers have enjoyed it. And we will say sayonara.
That was really loud.
We have one request. We have gift bags.
Oh, wow.
We have one request.
Okay, what's the request?
At the end of the event, please ask them to stand in the middle of the stage.
Okay, let's
So if you could
of
just-
course.